Um, this was going to be a party political broadcast on behalf of Donald Trump. No, it wasn't. It was going to be slightly political. I've got to give you that. But then I started having events regarding car repairs, which is something I do. And it got me to thinking about various things. Now, I know some of what I'm about to cover, I've covered before, but I feel it's worth repeating. I'm also going to, I don't know, I think you call it plagiarizing. I'm going to point to other YouTube videos that have repeated events that shouldn't need repeating, but unfortunately do because of what happened. And one of the YouTube channels will be Car Wizard. Whilst when he does his review of particular cars, it's the same stuff underneath. Shocks aren't leaking, brakes are 60% worn, things along those lines. But, that is not how he really inspects a car, or at least that is my belief, and I'm sure it's true. He'll, with his team, or his team separately, will inspect a car and do a proper assessment, but he does it for the camera. I'm not that professional, so I don't. But let me start with car stuff, because if I get onto political stuff straight away, you're going to run away, aren't you? I know you are. Don't lie to me. One of my customers came to me with his son's Mini, a Mini Cooper S. I think it's a 2011. Said, hey Gary, it's leaking, well, coolant and oil. So I said, okay, fine. I'll have a look at it and see what I can do. I looked at the vehicle and I did some research. And in the research, I discovered that with vehicles like this Mini Cooper S, you need to change the timing belt tensioners, etc. Between 60 and 100,000. This particular vehicle has 67,000 miles on it. So I looked at it and I diagnosed that the water pump was leaking and needed replacing. But there are also numerous oil leaks from this engine. Something that is 13 years old and it's leaking like a fucking sieve. Nice job, BMW. Talk about destroy a reputation of what was a fun, enjoyable, relatively reliable, and surprisingly, for an English car, not a leaking Mini. And I'm talking about the original Mini, of course. It wasn't fast. So what? However, realizing that, I'm not an expert on Minis. Give me a Jaguar, I know a lot more. Not everything, I just know a lot more. On this Mini, one of the first things I noticed, which is totally irrelevant to the story, opened the door, got in, popped the bonnet, and got out, shut the door. The door sounded like a piece of fucking tin. And I mentioned this to the owner's father and said, Jesus, that sounds bloody awful. He said, oh yes, with the Cooper S, because they wanted to save weight, they took out any sound deadening from the doors. Sounds like a piece of crap. They'd have been better off leaving it in there. How much did they gain by removing, I don't know, 8 ounces of sound deadening? Where these people get their fucking ideas from is a joke. However, back to the problem. The problem was the water pump was leaking. Sorry, dry throat. Dry throat. So the water pump's leaking. I'm believing that also the timing chain tensioning shit needs replacing. So I said, look, whilst I can do it, I really don't want to get into it. It's just way too much effort. Anyway, the father calls up the local mini place, which I believe was in Tempe, or they're called Mini Tempe, I'm not sure which, and says, hey, look, need a water pump replaced and the timing, etc. Oh, no, you don't need to do the timing. Okay. Yeah, well, unless the check engine light comes on and you get this code, you don't need to do it. Okay, I would agree to disagree. However, that's what the customer wants. So he said, okay, well then let's just do the water pump. So he goes there, he takes the car in, they do the water pump, and the thermostat. So they replaced the water pump and the thermostat. If the thermostat needed it or not is debatable. I bet they didn't test it, I bet they just replaced it. Hopefully they actually replaced it. And they charged him $2,700 to replace a water pump and a thermostat. So you got a water pump, you got a thermostat, and you got some coolant. God knows what their hourly rate is. But I said to the father, who is a friend, I said, shit, if I'd have known that, I'd have charged you $2,000 and I'd have felt terrible about it. He turned around and said, yeah, sure, but I'd have paid you. I guess I need to put up my rates. Another vehicle that I dealt with today, Nissan Titan, one of my good customers. Well, all of my customers are good, but there are some that are more regular than others, let's put it that way. So I did the AC on his vehicle and said, hey, look, I can pull down a vacuum, but it doesn't stay. So to try and save you some money, why don't we just fill it full of Freon with stop leak and fill it full of dye so that we can see where the leak is coming from and then deal with it. To which he said, yeah, okay, great. So I did that. I vacuumed it down, filled it full of Freon. It's blowing beautifully cold now. How long it will last, who knows. No, I charged him a nominal amount for that. He said, oh, by the way, I need a new steering rack on this truck. Would you be interested? Because he knows I hate working on his truck. Yeah, sure, okay. You're going to need to get an alignment done afterwards, etc. He said, yeah, I took it to Network Auto, which is a local place, and they're pretty good. Obviously, I don't have the overheads they do. They want to charge him to replace the rack and do the alignment, which I can't do. I can't do the alignment. Parts and labour, $2,300. Wow, that's a lot of change. So I said, well, how much is the rack, for Christ's sake? So, well, if you buy one from Nissan, you're looking at $1,500. But you can get one from Rock Auto, O'Reilly's, AutoZone, wherever, for about $500. And then, a pair of new tie rod ends, because you're not going to screw around. And then the labour on top of that. So, I don't know, even if you said that each tie rod end was $40, $580, $600 you're looking at for parts. And I looked and said, well, you're probably looking at about $300 in labour. That's it. That's a big saving for him. He knows he'll get a good job. He knows I won't fuck it up. It just gets me that these places charge so much. Again, I know they have overheads that I don't have. Excuse me a second. Dry throat again. Or it could be that I just like drinking wine. Another customer called me that I've never heard of, that didn't know her from Adam. Hey, Gary, given your number, how much to do a water pump on a Chevy Impala? So I said, okay, you supply all the parts and the coolant, etc., etc. Labour-wise, because this is a real pain in the ass to do, I said, you're probably looking at about $300 in labour. Wow, is that all? Well, yeah. I've decided I've got to put my hourly rate up. I guess because of Joe Biden, the cost of gas, everything, that has put the prices up on everything, but I haven't. I don't rip people off. I do what I consider a good job for a fair price. But it looks like I'm doing myself a disservice now, and I need to put up my rates, which I'm going to do. Sorry, customers. You're still going to be happy with what you get. You're still going to get it at a good price. But it's crazy the way the prices are these days for car work. Now, as mentioned, Car Wizard. He did a video recently with a Bentley, and it is a car that the dealer took to another shop to have it assessed and estimate on the work that needs doing to it. It is a dealer that uses the Car Wizard a fair bit, but I guess they wanted to try this other guy for whatever reason. Maybe the Wizard was busy, I don't know. Anyway, it ended up back at the Wizard shop. Not the Wizard, the other shop had estimated that all the suspension components needed replacing, and the car needed a service. So Wizard got his mechanic, Grimes, I think his name is, to look it over. He checked over everything on the suspension, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. Now, the other shop had estimated a $20,000 repair bill. So, there was nothing needed doing on the suspension. Wizard gathered the components ready for the service. Now, do bear in mind, this is a V12 Bentley. So, it's coils, plugs, filters, gaskets, etc. He laid it out on the table. So you're looking at 12 plugs, 12 coils, a couple of valve cover gaskets, valve cover seals, spark plug seals, etc. The components alone were $1,000. It's a Bentley. You can afford a Bentley, you can afford to pay for the fucking price of the repairs. But that's $1,000 in parts. Now maybe it's going to be 1,000, maybe 2,000 in labour. I don't know. I don't know what the labour rate is and how long it would take to actually do it. It's not simple, there's a lot of shit to get out of the way to get to the coils and plugs to do it. At least it's not an engine out job, which apparently it is if you want to replace the oxygen sensors on this Bentley. But, then this other garage was trying to rip off the dealer. $20,000 for something that doesn't need doing. They'd have been better off saying, I'm sorry, we don't know enough about Bentleys to do this. So yeah, you have to be very careful where you take your car. There are certain customers that come to me with a particular problem on their vehicle, and if it's something special that I can't touch, I'll put my hand up and say, sorry, I don't have the test equipment to do that. I can't diagnose it without, $20,000 worth of equipment. It's not going to happen. Or I've never touched one of these. I don't want to break anything, blah, blah, blah. So, but there are other vehicles that will come to me that I've not worked on before. But if it's a car, it's a car, it's a car. It doesn't matter whether it's a BMW, a Mercedes, a Porsche, a Ferrari, whatever. Unless I hit a point where I need a special tool, then I have to put my hands up and say, sorry, no. I have a customer who has a Porsche 911 Carrera. He's got a problem with the AC inside the car. It's not going where it should. That is certainly something I can look at. It's just basic logic. But if I can't fix it, I don't charge them a dime. It's just the way I work. Okay, sorry, dry mouth again. Please do like, comment, subscribe, dislike, whatever. But please, be constructive, not insulting. There's no point to being insulting. I'll just block you. Oh, and talking of that, sorry, let me just rattle on one thing. There is a British female comedian called Sarah Millican. In it, part of her routine in one of the shows, she said, I think it was Preston, I think she said, and as I was walking to the stage door, this man offered me anal sex. So she said, I was late. And of course, everybody laughs. And then she says, well, I was going to tell you something about me, but I think I just have. So I was watching another one of her YouTube videos, and the comment I wanted to make was, hey, how can you not like Sarah Millican? She likes anal sex. My comment was removed, and I'm blocked for 24 hours for commenting. Probably because I said anal sex. So it's okay for YouTube to allow it to be said, but you're not allowed to write it. Talk about hypocritical and also pathetic, because it was obviously some form of algorithm that picked out that I said that. But I wanted to make the point, and what I thought was funny. How can you not like Sarah Millican? She likes anal sex. It was a joke. So I signed on to one of my other accounts, made the same comment. I also mentioned the fact that YouTube had blocked me on my other channel, and I used the @ symbol for the A in anal, and instead of saying sex, I just said SX. It passed, it went through, and I haven't been blocked. YouTube to me is so hypocritical. You mustn't show a nipple, but if you show it in Africans dancing, that's okay. If you show it on a try-on video, that's okay. If you show breastfeeding, that's okay. You can show some poor lady having a Brazilian wax or a vagina inspection, that's medical, it's okay. But you still can't see a nipple. If the nipple is used as in, I don't know how to describe it. If a woman was just standing there naked, you mustn't see her nipples, they will fuzz them out. But any other time you can see a nipple. You can see my nipples. I don't bet you don't want to, but you could, and that's okay. What a joke. All right, that really is the end. Now fuck off and go do something. I'll tell you what you can do. Click like, comment, subscribe, send some messages. Go and do a political something. No, don't do that. That's boring. Bye. Okay, just an addition to the diatribe you've just been listening to. The steering rack scenario with the Nissan Titan of my customer, in the end I decided I didn't want to do it. There was a lot of work involved, and his truck is huge, and it would mean me doing it on my driveway, which, you know, it's hot out here in fucking Arizona, and I really didn't want to get into it. So I said to him, look, you know, I appreciate it, but no, go see my other friend and let him deal with it. So he did, and my other friend and I, you know, we do share customers when one's busy, and so on and so forth. The rack was purchased from O'Reilly's, $500 or whatever it is. But of course, it's a typical Chinese remanufactured piece of crap. And when he was driving the truck, it was very notchy. So now he has to pay labor again to have it redone. It's not the mechanic's fault that the rack isn't good. It's O'Reilly's. So now he has to put in a claim to O'Reilly's, and he'll get, you know, a percentage probably of what it cost, because O'Reilly's sell crap. Now, I don't know if their racks are any different to AutoZone or Pep Boys or Napa or whoever, but they should pay the full price in my mind, and an inconvenience fee, which they don't want to do, I bet. Very annoying. He did text me and ask me what I thought, and you know where he should get a rack. And I said, well, you know, at the end of the day, probably your best bet is to buy it from the dealer and pay $1,700 or whatever it is, as opposed to $500. You know, 3 times the bloody cost. But hopefully it isn't a piece of crap. And if it is, then you really got to come back on the dealer. And you just take the vehicle to them and say, you fucking sold me a piece of shit, now put in a nice piece of shit. It happens a lot, it seems, that remanufacturing stuff is not done properly. I worked at a British car service company back in Pennsylvania, near where I lived, and I lived in Yardley. I won't give their name because I'll probably end up with a fucking lawsuit. But they sold rebuilt racks. What they did is put new tie rod ends on and sprayed it black. That was what they considered to be a rebuilt rack. And they were selling a lot of them, and a lot of them were coming back. Yeah, that's not good. You shouldn't have to put up with that kind of crap. I also was just watching a video, again, Car Wizard, he's one of the guys that I watch, and Hoovy is one of his major customers who spends a lot of money with the Wizard, I must admit. So the Wizard, I'm sure, is very happy with him. However, he's got a Maserati that had a fucked up engine thanks to a customer who, or a salespeople, dealer, whatever. Someone put all sorts of shit into the cooling system and fucked it up and basically destroyed the engine. Oh God, I said basically, sorry. Once he'd finished taking the engine out, Hoovy purchased an engine from a junkyard, I guess. And, you know, after a lot of humming and hawing, he finally got the engine, and it was worse than the engine they'd taken out. According to the Wizard, this went on, I think there was like 2 or 3 different engines, and they were all worse than the one before. The point I guess I'm trying to make, which Wizard already made, is, you know, today you can't buy a junkyard engine and expect it to be any good. You can buy it, and but make sure it's okay before you put it in, before you put the effort into putting it in. I had the same experience with the transmission for a Mazda. I had 3 transmissions from a junkyard before I got one that actually worked and was okay. And it was not something I was familiar with, although by the time I'd finished, I was extremely familiar with how to get it in and out. It's just a lot of junkyards you cannot trust. You need to find someone that is reputable. I know the company LKQ have provided me with some parts. I have never bought an engine from them. I am not sponsored by them in any way, shape or form, but they seem to be America-wide, and they seem to be okay. And the only reason I mention them is because I've had good success in buying seat parts, dash parts, stuff like that, you know. But I've never bought an engine or a gearbox from them. So, you know, do bear that in mind when you're saying, oh, you know, I don't want to buy, let's say, I bought a core engine, you know, a basic core engine from Chevrolet way back in the mists of time. It cost me about $1,600. The engine I had was absolutely shagged. Okay, it was $1,600. Maybe today that'll be $2,500. I don't know. It was a bog standard, you know, V8 Chevy engine. And you take all the components off of your old engine and put them on the new one, you know, but it's a short block. So, you know, it was worth it. And it was great. I had no problems. And then I sold the old engine. Well, sorry, it was cut off a little short there. My customer turned up to pick up his truck, which I gave him the good news. He needs 2 new front tyres, he needs a front wheel alignment, and he also needs his transmission fluid and filter changed. He is one of my regular customers. When I do oil changes for him, hey, don't you like this? The camera follows me. Sorry. When I do oil changes for him, I always tell him, look, you can get it done cheaper elsewhere. And I can't remember if I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to mention it now anyway. Excuse me. Dry throat again. His son has a mini something, not a proper mini, you know, one of these new ones. And he went to this 5-minute lube change place, you know, where you sit in the car, they stick a pipe down through the dipstick and suck the oil out. Never a fucking good idea. Anyway, he called me and said, hey Gary, you know, my oil light is flashing, it's telling me I'm low on oil. So, okay, are you? Well, just had an oil change. Yeah, but are you low on oil? Check. So he checked. He was very low on oil. There was nothing showing on the dipstick. This super duper cheap lubey oil place that does it in 5 minutes sucks it out. That is not the way to do an oil change. You need to run a flush, and that's individual choice. I always run an engine flush. That gets all the crap down in the oil pan, and then you drain it all out. It doesn't, you don't suck it up with a little fucking tube. Whoever thought this was a good idea, well, they don't care about customers, that's all I'll say. So, that customer now is happy, he's filled up with oil, and he will never ever use these 5-minute oil change places again, or at least not if he values his vehicle. Where the hell was I going? I was going down a road here, wasn't I? Ah, yes, the oil change. So, yeah, take some time for the brain cell to work, huh? Give me a break. Or not, I don't give a shit. So my customer comes to me today for an oil change. Chevy truck 2500 HD 2018. His oil change today cost him $150. Whoa, you may say, that's fucking expensive for an oil change. No, it's not. It's a V8. It takes 8 quarts of oil. Every oil change I do for my customers, and if they don't agree to what I want to do, then they can fuck off and go to the 5-minute oil change. I do a flush, which is the liquid you put in, run the engine, and it dislodges all the crap. Now, if it's never been done on an engine, you might be running a risk, but personally I would do it. And other than just placing new oil in, I always add an oil additive if if the vehicle has a high amount of mileage. This particular one has 142,000 miles on it. So it gets used, the oil additive helps it in my book. Whilst I was there, I checked his fluids. He had nothing on steering fluid. He was low on washer fluid. His transmission fluid is black and expensive. Okay, I topped up all his fluids, but while I'm doing this, unlike the repair shops, I don't upsell shit. I checked his air filter and it was full of crap. So I called him and said, hey look, you know, your air filter's bad. And I sent him a picture and said, look, it really should be done. Is that an issue? Of course it isn't. Do it. He trusts me. He knows I haven't pulled someone else's old air filter out and shown him a picture of it. It's called trust. He could get his oil changes done a lot cheaper elsewhere. He always likes synthetic oil. He always likes to do the 5,000 mile stuff. The vehicle, as I said, has over 140,000 miles on it. So it has to be the high mileage additive. So I flush it. I put a new filter on, of course. I do not use Fram because they're crap. That's just a personal opinion, Mr. Fram. You prove me otherwise. I will add an oil additive and 8 quarts of oil. Oh, sorry, rewind. 1 quart is the additive, so it's 7 quarts of oil and 1 quart of the additive. And I look at the vehicle. At the same time I was looking at the vehicle, as I previously mentioned, he needs 2 new front tyres, a wheel alignment, and he needs the transmission fluid and filter changed. And he needs the alignment. Did I just say that? I think I did. So, you know, I don't make a fortune out of doing this. It's a few extra bucks for me. Great, terrific. He gets a good fucking job. And as I always say, if you don't like what I do, then tell me. If you do, tell someone else. And on the same scenario there with that, the guy with the Porsche Carrera that I fixed, he's now mentioned me to a friend of his who has a Mercedes 1970 sports blah blah blah, and they want me to do work on it. So, you know, you mechanics out there, do a proper job, do it right, be honest with your customers, they'll keep coming back. You rip them off, you won't ever see them again. Duh, that doesn't work, does it? Another minor thing, I just you know, brain cell engaged. When I replaced my customer's air filter, when I took the filter out, yeah, it was full of crap. There was also crap in the box that it lives. So I vacuumed it out. Silly little things like that. When I did the brakes on a customer's Traverse the day before, did his brakes, and because the wheels are aluminium, and the drums are steel, I put a coat of copper grease so that they don't lock together, and also on the studs, so that the next time you want to take those lug nuts off, they come off easily. That may not be me that does it. That doesn't matter. It's called doing the job right and doing it professionally. I'm not perfect. I would never say I'm perfect. I'm good. Am I as good as I can be? No. But I work on it, and I try every day. Alright, enough of my fucking ranting. Get out in that garage, go do your own shit. Or do shit for someone else, but do it right. Bye.